Pot, everyone. So about Appear. Appear has been established some 20 years ago in Oslo, Norway, from a group of Tandberg engineers. And it has started producing modular headends for very popular cable and IPTV satellite kind of a headends. It was at that time one of the first vendors providing this kind of modular headends where you could actually build the headend as per your need, right? So as per the functionality you needed, right? Combining encoding with muxing, with whatever satellite modulation, whatever you actually needed fit in that modular header. Some 10 years ago, Appear has introduced an X platform. That's a newer platform that caters also the needs of contribution and live TV production environment. And this is what I'm going to focus today. It's about the X platform, and it's about the news at Appear from the new product and news in general. Our the most fresh news from last week at Appear is now a public company. It's listed on the Oslo Euronext stock exchange. So that being 21 years after foundation of Appear, now we are a public company, which gives us a possibility to grow in terms of capital increase, maybe some acquisitions, definitely new products and new development in that field. Here is a list of the customers worldwide, basically. And it's an interesting list. You will see some companies there that have a very strong technical background. They build solution for themselves. Such a company is, for instance, Netflix. Everybody knows. Netflix has been a long time only kind of a SVOD provider, but has relatively recently started with live TV as well, especially in the sports. And for their Christmas football match, they're not using the encoders built by Netflix, but they are using Appear encoding for encoding the sports production that they are doing. Funny enough, there is also AWS, who you very well know has their own, what used to be Elemental. They're also for the usage of the sports production to contribute to the production facility is also used. Appear X20 is actually used. We are also very proud of the reference with the Olympics last year, where both OBS, which is Olympic Broadcast Services company that produces all the material for the Olympics, and NBC Universal, who does actually exactly the same but for US market, both of those companies have been using Appear X20 also. And that list goes on and on. So that means Appear has shifted on top of the distribution business with the cable and IPTV headends that we are doing. We are now more, even so, in the contribution production, especially of the live TV. And in the live TV, sports is the only thing that practically matter, right? There may be some reality shows and such, but sports is the one that has the most value in terms of the content in general. Our latest, that's also something I have to mention, our latest addition to the references in sports production is a production of La Liga, which is a Spanish premium, so first league. La Liga, everybody knows. This has been taken now with Telefonica, that is using Appear X20 for both encoding, decoding, and feeding the remote production of these sports. In the center of all of that is Appear's X platform. As I mentioned already, we have started with the cable IPTV headends that were modular, and the same goes for the newest, let's say, the X chassis, where you can also build chassis as you actually are required, depending on your workflow, plant, etc. So you have many different models. The chassis itself is fully redundant. It has 140 gig total capacity. And what is even more important is actually all of the modules are hardware modules that are built in Norway, both with software that is put on the modules is actually built in Norway, and it's highly reliable. And actually that's one of the reasons why we are so successful in the sports live TV production. To continue on the X platform, I will just be very brief on that. It has different models with different size of the chassis. X10 is 1 RU, X20 is 2 RU chassis. There you can build different design and it will do all the technologies that are listed here. I believe the presentation is later shared. You can get additional information. I will not enter into details of it because we have some news to cover. For those who have visited us during IBC, most probably you have seen we have a picture of a 19-inch deck where we have a one chassis. The fact is that this X20 can, for instance, cater 96 full HD channels, right? So for either remote production, either JPEG XS, HD, or HEVC codec, as an example. Actually, I have only 2 use cases. I think I spoke about that one last year. That's an orange video-assisted referee case. In Slovakia, they have done a centralized VAR, video-assisted referee. There is a VOR, which is an operational room for the referees in Banská Bystrica. And from each event, there are actually all the 8 HD signals is being sent continuously to the referees to make a decision of whether it's penalty, offside, or whatever needs to be done, and then being sent back. This is an interesting application because there are a couple of things that are really important in VAR. Firstly, of course, quality of the pictures. With the centralized VAR, referees actually have a bigger room, bigger screens to make a decision. So it's easier for them to make a decision. Secondly, latency is very important, both going to the operational to Banská Bystrica in this case, and then the video that needs to be sent back for the referee to make a call. This is very important. And then the other thing that is very important is the time alignment between the frames. So we have a solution up here in X chassis where all the streams in the chassis are aligned, right? So on the same frame. So that means that even if they are watching the video from one camera and the second camera in parallel, those cameras will be time aligned. So it will always be exactly the same time. Very important for the VAR application, for instance, and in some other cases as well for the remote production, for instance, which is kind of a similar scenario. It's also important to have exactly the same time of the camera coverage, despite the fact that the production facility may be hundreds of kilometers or 1,000 kilometers away, right? Okay, that's one example of this kind of a contribution production environment. The second example is something that, knowing that most of you are basically a telco providers and you get your signals from various sources these days, mostly satellite, maybe also local. And what we have done lately in many cases is that many of this kind of a long tail content is being received by SRT. We also, in the X chassis, there is an SRT module that can be a listener, can be caller, can be anything, and it has a huge capacity of 6 gigabits, only one module. And that will give you, I think, 120, 130 channels, right, with one module that you can receive. Of course, there is also satellite demodulator that you can use, also very, very powerful. And you can build a combination of this kind of reception header, then goes through classical standard descrambling. Some of you will recognize our XC platform, which is one of the first platforms that we have, which is still valid, still working. And then you can further doing transcoding for either IPTV, or you do WAM-based delivery for cable, or you do transcoding for OTT and MUXIT, etc. Right? So that's just a scenario that you can, something you can build with a full, let's say, up-here solution. But let's go now to the most interesting stuff. which is our new product. We have started with the one that is covering 96 channels, right, in one chassis. And then somebody realized that not everyone needs 96 channels, right, because it's maybe a lot, especially for contribution and stuff. And we've been asked by the customers to build a smaller product that is as reliable, as functional, as high quality as the X20 chassis and X10 is, but in a smaller form factor. So we answered with this product. This is coming out end of December. This is a product that actually does foreign codes to the codes. So it's bidirectional in a way, right? So you can send, it has a SDI, it has a 2110 supported in. So you can do either or. That is a new model for X20. This eventually, with some software change, will be able to do also 8 encodes. So for the ones that don't need return basically signal or return feed, we'll also be able to do 8 encodes. It's actually meant for kind of a small local studios kind of scenarios where you are basically bringing content to the main studio and then receiving the control feedback and you know, so to have a connection in between the two, but it could also be used for the local broadcasters feeding headends of operators such as most of you are here. It will also have SRT built in, covering 16, I think, channels in SRT, so it will be sufficient for the capacity of this device. I think we are getting it locally here in sometime January, February timeframe latest, and we can demo this device. And then another thing that we were asked by the customers, who are primarily, in this case, producers of live TV events, they would like to have more flexibility in terms of how the signals and how the workflow is handled and such. In this case, our X solution is actually bringing all this heavy lifting to the production environment, but then it's maybe not so flexible when it comes to handling different outputs, different inputs, things like that. So we have decided to build also a software platform, and that's called the VX. And VX is not something that will replace X, which is a hardware platform. So software is not gonna replace it fully, but it will add the flexibility of also licensing and also how this can be enabled. So we are building a completely agnostic architecture in terms of on what you are putting this software on. It can be cloud, it can be private cloud, it can be COTS, it can be basically, so any kind of compute will handle this software, and the licensing will be done in a very flexible way. So basically you can get a license if you need for producing a local event for 30 days, and that's it. You build it, you use it, you drop it. It's only 30 days license. It can be also a permanent license, of course, but that's basically the original plan, to have kind of a pop-up event covered. So this is one of the example on how this should work in a production environment, but I think it's even better to show it how the user interface looks like. It has this kind of a drag and drop solution where you actually drag the functionality. You start creating the workflow, A/B, failover, SRT output, whatever you actually want. And our plan is actually to charge by these connections. So not by bandwidth or anything, but just by connections. It's gonna be super simple actually to run. Now, the first edition of this product coming early next year is gonna be more for the SRT usage. This is currently the first version, but then the roadmap is very, very aggressive. So we want to put HEVC decoder, encoder, NDI, input, output, JPEG XS encoder, so NMOS 2110, and also built for the raw media exchange, where we are a partner of MXL Media Exchange together with EBU. That's being built in order to kind of save the space for media, have one central point, and then this media can be shared among many others. It's a good initiative, it's only in its infancy. So in case there are any detailed questions or any interest for demo to try out, please contact my friends at HFC Technics, and they will help you with, and we will help them bringing that up. That was my last slide. So thank you very much. Köszönöm szépen.